here's one of the biggest questions of the world. What makes you, you? DNA. Or at least it is claimed to look like this spiral shape. And it might not be a spiral shape. Why we say it is spiral shape? It's because the X-ray photo that we took of the DNA is an X shape. But I will just digress it as a spiral shape today. So, let's get started on today's episode of DNA. Alright, let's get started. Now, what is DNA? Well, DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid. Confusing, right? Now, so you say this like this. Deoxyribonucleic acid. Well, that's a long word if you ask me. Now, D stands for deoxy, N stands for nucleic, and A stands for acid. By the way, side notes, DNA actually has the name acid in it, and DNA is actually it's a nucleic acid. And long ago, people thought that it was too simple to become the instructions of life. Everybody thought that proteins were complicated enough to make the instructions of life. But however, there was a lot of things that they never knew about DNA. DNA actually is instructions of life, and there are loads and loads of ways that can happen here. So, first of all, DNA is what makes you you. It is the blueprint for your instructions of your body. And here's how it works. First of all, there are some links, special links that are linked with hydrogen bonds. Adenine, cytosine, guanine, and cytosine. These are all the bonds that you need to basically know about the DNA bonds. And this is what DNA looks like at the molecular level. Kind of like a spiral staircase that if you turn, it looks like it's always going up, and yeah, it runs. And here are some things you need to remember about adenine, thymine, cytosine, and guanine, or just call it ATCG for now. A always bonds with T. A always bonds with T, and then G always bonds with C. And here's the popular dynamic that you can say and memorize. The A goes with T and C for G. Apples in the tree and cars in the garage. And this is actually heard from the internet by myself, and it does kind of work. Of course, it is natural, so yeah. But what if you cut DNA in half? What if you break one of the bonds so that it will be just one bonded? What if DNA is just half of what it is actually? Well, in these cases, there are some things which DNA is actually split up. And also, you aren't actually supposed to see the other mnemonic actually for now. But however, it kind of looks like this. It's still the twisted ladder, but only part of it. And in this case, instead of using T for thymine, we actually use the C. We actually use U, and it's called uracil. I like to think of it like, and here's another popular dynamic for the RNA bonds. Apples under the tree, but cars in the garage still works. And now, some quizzes! Okay, now for the quizzes. Now, in DNA, there are these bases on one side. Remember, apples in the tree and cars in the garage. So here are the bases for only one side of the DNA. A, T, T, G, C, T, A, and G again. What is the missing side for the DNA code? Answer in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and now. The answer is T, A, C, G, A, T, and C. And now, on to RNA quizzes. Alright. So there is only one base. There is one base, only just one base of DNA. It is A, G, D, T, C, A, G, and T. What is the missing side if the missing side was asked for RNA? What is this missing side if it was RNA? Well, answer in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The answer will be U, C, A, G, U, C, and A. Now, why U's instead of T's? Remember, this DNA strand was actually asking for RNA. So you have to replace T with U. Got it? And this is how actually the basics of DNA biology actually works. This is how DNA actually works in loads of different ways. Now you might see about all those crime shows where even just a few strands of hair can show us DNA of the culprit. And so some of my favorite TV shows, cartoon TV shows, such as Ben 10, about this kid who goes on whose origins start on a holiday, finds a watch who which merges with his DNA and changes him into like over 10 different aliens and uses it to stop a Big Bang in the end of the series finales. Actually, he's called Ben 10. Just search him on the YouTube. He's actually very popular in the olden days. And he is still popular today. And actually, he has a lot of science behind him. Now, the watch, which it is called the Omnitrace, actually bonds and blends in and merges with Ben's own DNA, which means that his DNA is actually mutated. And mutations can actually happen in real life. Also, they're very rare, though. Mutations can actually happen like this. Sometimes DNA spirals can actually be changed. Or some bases can be mixed up, such as instead of C equals G, they actually swapped it with AT, so it's a CT and AG. That's pretty bad, and I'll reform him back to his original spot. Okay. And then there are all these different types, of things that we need to talk about. And also in some of the finales of the season 1 first episode of that last episode of the season 1, there was actually of him getting ripped off with his watch. Since the watches merged with the DNA, it must have been pretty painful. And also we don't know that if DNA actually looks like this, even though in the TV show it actually does look like this too. Later, and we just represent it like this just to make it more serial, and it is kind of always represented like this. And so, yeah, it's the basics of DNA. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did. Please like, share, and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. And I'll see you in the next episode. Junhan out. Peace. Max Tennyson out.